Hello and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits. Joining me today is Jena Lynch to talk about what to do to prepare for the end of year fundraising session. Jena, welcome to the show.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me.
So, as we begin, I was hoping if you could share your superhero origin story. That is to say, how did you get started working with nonprofits?
Oh, sure. I think, like many others, I am an accidental nonprofit nerd. I've always known I wanted to have a career where I could serve others in some way. I'm going to get sappy for a minute. A big part of where that comes from is actually my dad. He's an engineer by trade, the most logical, technical person you will ever meet. But he always made time to serve, whether that was volunteering, sitting on nonprofit boards. He still sits on boards, supporting causes that he believed in. And he used to say something that really stuck with me. I mean, my entire life from when I was really little till now, the greatest way of serving yourself is to serve others. And I think that idea really shaped how I think about my own work and even my own purpose. Okay, so all that to say, my first job out of college actually was not in a nonprofit, but it was in the public library system. And I was a children's librarian. I did the hokey pokey 5 days a week in front of 3 to 5 year olds multiple times a day. Uh, and it was both mortifying and a lot of fun. What I liked about the library, that it wasn't just about the books, right? It was this community hub. It's where everybody of all sorts, all places came together to connect, to find resources and just kind of belong, something that they paid into, something that they, a space that they deserved that was for them. And so that was kind of my real first taste of community-centered work. Working for the county, not only as a librarian, did we do all the library things, but when there was a natural disaster, I was in Florida at the time. If there was a hurricane, we had to volunteer with our boots on the ground at the safe shelters, right? So it wasn't just, hey, here's this book that you like. It was truly serving your community. And I think it planted that seed. And so that kind of just transitioned me into my nonprofit career. I worked for the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta. I was a volunteer manager, and Big Bird was my colleague, and it was the most magical place ever. So serving in that arts capacity. And then I moved on to a domestic violence shelter that I served in during COVID, which was very challenging, to say the least. And I worked with our volunteers, our major donors, our in-kind donations. And from there, I moved to the Epilepsy Foundation. And I bopped around a lot when I was younger because I was trying to find the cause that I was the most passionate about, right? Human services, arts, or, children-focused organizations. And that's kind of how I found Donorbox. I said, how can I serve all of the awesome causes all at once? Maybe that's greedy. I don't know. And so that's what brought me to Donorbox. Donorbox has served 100,000 organizations in the last 10 years, of all different sizes and causes and missions. And my role now is the education and community engagement manager. And that's all about equipping nonprofits with the tools and resources and confidence to fundraise in a way that feels really doable. So not overwhelming, right? I create webinars, I work with a team on guides and blog articles, podcasts, trainings, and I just get to work directly with fundraisers who are in the trenches every day and create resources, the kind that I wish I had when I truly had my boots on the ground. And I think that's the best part. So we really, Donorbox as a whole, our mission is to just empower organizations to raise more with less effort so that they can focus on their mission. And I'm very grateful that I can do that every day, and been doing it now for close to 5 years.
I appreciate the fact that your dad's an engineer. I mean, so am I. And I also love his expression, serving yourself is, what is that? Serving yourself is serving others the best way,
Serving others is the greatest way to serve
greatest way.
yourself. Mhm.
I totally agree with that because there's something very rewarding you get when you serve others and it comes from inside of you. So it's almost like a selfishness where you say, I want to feel better. And the best way to feel better is to help others. So it's
Yeah.
it's not just a one directional type of thing. It's yes, you help others, but at the same time, the feeling that you get when you help others is extremely powerful and it's extremely addictive, I would say too.
Yes, addictive. It truly is. Once you start, you really can't get enough, which is good.
So these days, you're mostly in the fundraising element in terms of things. So you must see quite a bit. As you said, about 5 years at Donorbox. So how are fundraisers doing these days?
You know, the little giggle at the end of that question really says it all. I think that the sector is incredibly resilient and adaptable, but it is hard times. It's Things are very unpredictable right now. A lot of things are in the air. We had talked about when we met previously about this triple squeeze that folks are experiencing right now. And I call it the triple squeeze because you've got three forces pressing in at once. It's funding being cut or frozen, it's individual giving that's declining. And at the same time, the demand for services is higher than ever, but they still expect more. And you got to keep on keeping on, right? So with our clients at Donorbox, or even folks that I'm meeting out at networking events locally, I think that right now there's kind of this scarcity mindset a little bit where leaders and fundraisers feel like they are constantly playing catch up, but also waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Things are kind of hanging in the balance. And so instead of having breathing room to plan strategically, I think that a lot of folks feel like they're on defense a little bit. They are chasing quick wins. They are reacting to crises or being mentally prepared to react to crises, or they're putting band-aids on bigger problems. And it's tricky, right? I think with talking with people and with our clients with DonorBox, I think that this season for nonprofits makes strategizing even more important. Of course, you should always be strategizing, and it's hard when your nervous system is just on high alert. And what I've been telling folks is that you cannot afford to wait until November to throw something together. Especially we're in August, which means that our year-end planning is starting in just a few weeks. We just got out of the summer slump. It can be sleepy. And once we hit September, it is go time, right? And if you don't start planning early, the pressure of this uncertainty of all the things that you feel like you should be doing is just going to compound. And the truth is too, and I mentioned this very briefly, donor behavior is shifting, right? People are giving, but they're giving to fewer organizations because, yes, organizations, nonprofits are going through this uncertainty. So we're humans, right? Things are uncertain all around. And a donor who used to support 5 causes, maybe they're supporting 2 now, right? So nonprofits, again, they're on defense. They're fighting to stay within this inner circle, right? And so I think that, again, folks, their nervous system is a little on edge. They're not really sure where to go. But I think that means that retention, connection, and clarity matter more now than ever. So that's kind of what we're seeing, right? We're heading into year end. I think nonprofit fundraisers who will weather this squeeze the best are the ones who are willing to slow down, right? Not react and kind of put a framework into place and not just scramble. So we're feeling all the things. We're feeling all the things, but I think with all this, like I said, nonprofits are very resilient and have the ability to plan and get ahead of it.
A lot of threads to pull on here.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few, but it's a great synopsis. Um, I would disagree about the word defense, though. I don't think their nonprofits are necessarily on defense. They're more like scrambling
Yeah.
and
Yes, you're right.
uncertain. It's defense is when you feel it. I use the word defense when you're being attacked in some way or you got a lot of pressures coming inward. I see it reversed. They have to feel like they have to go outward because they're not getting the usual funding from grants and so forth that they're used to getting.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. I do agree with that.
The um, the planning part is interesting because I also agree slowing down is one way to handle this
Hmm.
because it can seem like the right thing to do to try to do everything, but that typically doesn't work. So planning, strategizing, the measure once, cut, no, measure twice, cut once kind of
Hmm.
mentality where you think about things twice as much as you actually before you end up doing them because once you start doing them, it's harder to undo them. I think
Yes.
is an important part as well. Um, you mentioned connection, retention, and clarity. I was wondering if you could go through those three one by one to see, what does that mean to you in terms of is it connecting more or how do you connect better? Is it keeping what you have for the retention, the clarity, is it the mission? Like what are those three, how those three elements or themes play into this scenario?
Yeah. And I'll kind of I have formulas for everything. I'll give you this, right? I have a 3C formula, I have a 3S formula. I think for me, the best way to kind of remember what we need to be doing and when is to make a formula. Connection, I think right now, this is a good time to connect with your donors, right? They are coming out of their summer vacations. They are coming out of their summer holidays and they are finally making their way back into their inbox and they are looking for causes to connect with. Again, the year end is the most generous time of the year. And so this is a time for nonprofits to be really intentional about how they're connecting with their supporters, right? And that's not just sending out a quick appeal saying, "Hey, we're here, give to us." It's truly taking the time now to understand who your supporter base is. You would not send the same email to a first-time donor as you would a donor that's been giving for many, many years. Same for volunteers who are also supporters who also give to your mission. Maybe it's just time, maybe it's time and money, or to a board member, even. So I think connection is a pretty broad term and it encompasses a lot in my mind because I always have my mind on retention mode. That is what we teach most about at Donorbox is how to retain your donors. But it's connecting with your supporters in a way that is meaningful and personal. If you don't know who your supporters are, or I say this a lot, if you're talking to everybody, you are not talking to anybody, right? Piece of that. And then clarity. I mean, the big piece of this is I'm going to say we, the broader we as in the sector. I think that we tend to get stuck in cycles, not systems, right? We are on autopilot. We are often doing things because that's the way that we have always done it. The fall gala, the newsletter, the same Giving Tuesday appeal letter, right? That you've sent 5 years in a row. Every action needs a purpose and needs a goal. So before you go into anything that is taking your resources, your time, your staff, your talent, get clarity on why you are actually doing it and what that goal actually is, right? And that is the basis of any framework. Why are you doing this? Who are you doing this for? Who is going to support you in this, right? Um, I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clear.
It's
That
a
is the
housekeeping.
foundation. Yes, it's housekeeping. That's exactly what it is. This is your due diligence. This is your due diligence, right? Knowing who you're communicating with and knowing why you're doing it. What is the goal of anything that you're doing? Because it's so easy, like I said, to be working in cycles. You're doing it, you're doing it. But if you set up these systems, a system to define your goal, a system to talk to your donors, a system to measure that impact, you're going to get off of that hamster wheel and it's going to be much more manageable.
Being in technology, I'm often involved in some kind of digital transformation. And I don't like just taking things as they were and building it to the new system. I like to question things. Why is it it's done this way? Maybe are you guys open to new ideas?
Mhm.
Because just because it may have worked somewhat successfully in the past or
Yeah.
even not, just to carry it over blindly isn't always the best choice. It's a great moment in time to do your spring cleaning, your house cleaning, to say, okay, well, do we actually need this? What is the purpose of this? Is it benefiting us? Are we reporting on it? Are we doing anything with the data? And then more often than not, we come across a situation where actually it's not really being used, or we can trim it down to just, 3 questions instead of 20 questions. So it's a great way. This is a great moment, an
Yes.
opportunity to be able to do something like this, to be able to say, do we actually need to do what we're doing here? Is there a better way to do things?
Yes, exactly. Now is about setting intention and being very clear about it. I love a formal document it, right? Block out your time to do it, hold yourself accountable because all that elbow grease that you're putting in now will make it so much easier as you're going through this, like the chaos of Q4 and year end giving.
Documentation. I love that you got formulas, you've got systems, you've got documentation. To me, this is also very beautiful because when it's on pen and paper, there's something magical about putting it down on pen and paper. It becomes more real, I guess. But you're also then it's easier to share with people. You have an understanding as a team where you're going, what the new ideas are hoped to bring, and so on and so forth. So, talking about it's great, but the minute you put on paper is to me is the first major step in moving toward those goals.
Yes, exactly. It's all about accountability and finding people that can hold you accountable in it too. Especially, I'm sure you have many solo listeners, folks that are wearing 10 million hats. And um, if you don't have your board or other staff members saying, hey, but remember this document, this is for you, right? This is your source of truth. And it truly is so important.
I would just add, make sure it's also concise because no one wants to read a book anymore. Keep it,
Clear,
keep it.
concise, compelling.
There you go. The marketing side, though, I want to throw out a typical argument to this because um, I agree with you that being more clear with your messaging, who you're and more meaningful, more personal is important. But the marketing part is interesting because, for example, I am a specialist. I do one very thing very well, right? Salesforce and nonprofits. But a lot of people in my situation, Salesforce consultants, rather serve any kind of client. If you have Salesforce, I'll be your partner. I can help you move
Mhm.
toward there. And I try to teach in my coaching as well that specializing actually makes a big difference because you get to determine and isolate who you want to work with as opposed to just trying to help everybody with every problem or every Salesforce problem in this case. But the argument is, well, hang on, you're now reducing your market share possibilities from whatever to a smaller amount. Is that a good idea? So when you talk about not being able to help everyone, how do you, or, what would you say to organizations to say, look, we're actually in a desperate situation here. We need as much help as we can from everybody. Why would we just reduce it to our messaging or our marketing to a sub segment when we might miss out on other opportunities?
Yeah. And I'll clarify as well. When I say segment your donors, you will have many segments and you will have many different iterations of a message that you've reworked to speak to that specific audience. So that might be your donors who gave last year, but not this. That might be donors that gave at some point, but not this. Your new donors, your recurring donors, your major donors. That's 5 segments right there. You could also add on your volunteers, and you can be focused and personal with a message. And yes, again, elbow grease. Oh, you have to write 5 different types of messages for how many different channels, for how many different segments. But that's what I mean. So it's not really pick one and only communicate to them. It's put those into buckets and communicate to them like you were talking to them specifically, right? Like you understand them, like you know them. People are looking to be understood and to be part of a community. And when I'm communicated to, I want to feel like that person or that organization sees me and they understand me. I give to an animal shelter here, and I love to get those emails from them about, the dogs that have just turned 10 years old. They're a senior citizen. They know that I engage with that content, like, oh, the sweet senior citizen puppies. And that moves me to give, like, oh, little Hank. Of course I'm going to give to Hank. What a sweet old man name for a dog, right? They understand me and it feels good. And so that's what I mean. And of course, you always want to cast a wider net. I get that acquisition seems so appealing, but it is so much more costly than retaining the supporters that you already have. I'm not saying to do away with acquisition because, yes, there is a great need, and to grow your donor base, your supporter base is the goal, right? That is one of the goals. But the retention piece and speaking to people like you know them, finding those 5 major segments that are meaningful to you, to your goals, will really help your campaign see success. I mean, the sobering stat that will live in my head rent free is that most nonprofits lose up to 80% of their first time donors. So that means that if you lose someone because you weren't speaking to them, you weren't communicating consistently, like you're talking to them, like you understand them, the odds of getting them back is much, much lower. But the good news in this too, because I hate to sound all doom and gloom, research also shows that if you increase your retention rate by just 10%, that's so doable. If you can just increase your retention rate of your donors by just 10%, you are actually boosting your donors' lifetime value by up to 200%. So if you can get them to give more than once, they are going to stick with you long term. So instead of spending all of your energy, focusing on just one segment, a lot of people are like, major donors, I just want to talk to my major donors. They're going to give tons of money. You got to talk to them all very intentionally. And sometimes the smartest play is to just keep the ones you already have and keep them inspired. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Hey, Alex here. I want to take a brief moment and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, please consider sharing it with someone who would also benefit from its insights. It's these kinds of referrals that really help the show grow. You can also show your support by making a small donation. I don't do corporate sponsorships or product placements, so I rely on your support to keep the show going. You can visit my website, agentsofnonprofit.com, and click Support Us in the top menu. Thank you kindly. In terms of helping writing messaging to those 5 segments, because you mentioned earlier there might be an effort required, this is where I would recommend AI, at least as a first draft.
Yes.
The more you can feed AI with your particular mission, give it your tone, give it your voice. At the minimum, it can write your first draft. I wouldn't necessarily copy and paste as is, especially with those M dashes, which are a big thing now. But the idea, because you don't want your donors to believe that you wrote it or used AI to write it. But the idea is, having AI help you with those first drafts, then crafting it, refining it before sending it out. That can save you a lot of time and effort just to come up with ideas, even for those segments.
Yes.
So,
Yes. I think AI is a big piece of this. And you can even ask ChatGPT or whatever your preferred Gemini, whatever you're using, to create a prompt for this. If you need a prompt to share with your development team, write a prompt for me that will help me write messaging and appeal for these 5 different segments. And then the biggest piece, and this is the challenge that I've come across with AI writing in general, of course, like you said, you cannot copy and paste and call it done because there's a difference between sounding genuine and being genuine, in my opinion. And that's kind of the line where it lies, is donor-centered language, right? I don't know if AI has really caught on yet, but you can work in that prompt, include that in the prompt. Say you more than the word we. Not we helped 100 children get backpacks for school this year. Because of your gift, you helped 100 children get the resources they need to have a continued sustainable education, right? And that is the big part that you always need to include in your AI prompts for any segment of donor that you're messaging with. But it really helps to syndicate that across platforms, and then you can use those messages and say, "Help me create a social media post, right? Help me create a newsletter blurb, something for LinkedIn, something for Instagram. So it really is an amazing tool to find your one core story that you want to focus on for all of your donors, right? But really hone in on what would interest them and then syndicate it across all of your platforms. It really, gosh, where was this 5 years ago when I was having to do this, right? It really is an amazing tool and helps this lift feel a little bit more manageable and a little less intimidating.
I did a course on personal selling years ago, and they teach you that the most, I was going to say seductive, the most appealing word that you can use is the person's name in the
Mm.
conversation. And the second most is the word you. So, to your point, if you can rephrase, and I've seen some really weird advertising on certain brands, like they rephrase an entire sentence just to add as many yous in there as possible. There's obviously limits to this, but the idea is if you can use the word use, to your point, as opposed to we, or that does make a difference. It is psychologically has an impact. If you can use their name, even better. But maybe mix and match between the use and the person's name.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Earlier, you said in order to win for nonprofits to win in the coming months, the two things were willingness to slow down, and the second one is a framework. So the slow down we kind of touched upon, making decisions a bit slower, measure twice, cut once, kind of thing.
Mhm.
What do you mean by framework? What does a good framework look for you or look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, again, just as I have a formula, I have a framework. And I think a smarter way forward is creating a plan that you can follow month by month. Right. So it's not about adding more work, but it's about organizing what you're already doing so that it actually builds momentum instead of draining you. So I've broken this down from September to December, and this is what I'm going to be teaching through Donorbox until the end of the year. So in September, the smartest thing you can do is re-engage your donors, right? Again, they're emerging from their summer vacations. You're re-engaging them. Just a quick little impact story, a message of inspiration, not even an ask. This is not time to make an ask. Like, hey, you're back from vacation, you want to give? It's re-engaging them in a way that feels meaningful to them. And then September is also a time to set your goals. What is your goal for year end? Is it an engagement rate? Is it a dollar amount? Why is it that goal? Go into last year's, uh, you know, financials, pull what you raised. Did you hit your goal last year? What does that look like? And really set your goal in September. And I think that you don't want to wait until December or November to decide what you want out of your year end campaign, right? So you just use September to get clear. What's your fundraising target? What's the story you will tell? Your hero story, and who do you need to reconnect with to get there? And then moving into October is when you're going to start to build urgency and finalize some of these plans. You're going to get your appeals written. So you can use AI to do this. You can use your team, a little bit of both, right? And proofed. You need to proof these. You need to get your donation form and your tech tested. Can people give in a way that's easy? That's quick. That's not frustrating. So check all of your tech, make sure that your systems are working or in place, and get your communications plan laid out. So your social media, your donor phone calls, your touch points, right? So if you do that in October, then November is going to feel a little less like a fire drill, especially here. I think once November hits, we're already in Thanksgiving mode. We are so ready to just be full of turkey and be done. And we have to wait a few weeks to be able to enjoy that. And really, November is launch mode for a year end campaign. That's when your campaign goes live. That's when your story gets told. And that's when you start inviting people in, right? That is when everything goes live, your donation campaign, your page, your appeals, your social. And that's when that story and those touch points are continuously happening, because it takes a lot of touch points to get people to act now. I think the magic number used to be 7. And I think last I checked, now it's 10 or 13 different touch points to get someone to even act on an appeal. And for direct mail, it's even longer. If you're sending in a direct mail appeal, it will sit on someone's counter for 21 days before they even open it. So starting early in November, making sure you have all those touch points with enough time will make a big difference. And then December is all about follow through, right? You're keeping up those touch points, and then it's your stewardship. I love to see stewardship sandwiched in between appeals. So, it's you're thinking promptly within 48 hours personally. You're letting folks know what the impact was, and you're just making sure that you're showing up until the very end and thanking people as they go, because this will be an invitation into the new year. So that's the framework. It is a month by month framework. What I say is, again, block out intentional time. Take time this week, whatever week you're listening to this podcast, block out 3 hours in your entire month. That is not a huge ask. 3 intentional hours with yourself, with your team, to plan and execute, because then you're not scrambling and you're holding yourself accountable. And I think this really aligns your rhythm too with your donors. I think they're paying attention in October, and they're really ready to give in November and December. So um, this doesn't mean that nonprofits need to do more. This framework, I know it may sound like a lot. It's not really about doing more. It's just doing things with more intention. So that's kind of the shift.
I do appreciate the fact that you said in September, re-engaging with the donors, but not asking for anything just yet. I totally agree with that. If you're, and you said you said 7 touch points. Does that mean 7 touch points before they initiate something, or is it seven? Like, I remember there was a
Yes.
formula or a ratio where number of touch points versus how many times you can ask for something. Was that what you were referring to, or is that seven meaning they usually end up donating after the seventh touch point?
Yeah, so that's what we've seen in previous years, is that they're usually donating in some way, or maybe that's not your ask. Maybe your ask is to reshare a campaign, but acting on your call to action after 7 touch points. But I've heard rumblings that now, because of our attention spans and everything else, our doom scrolling, our email inboxes, that number is rising and rising.
Mm. And then you mentioned in October donor phone calls. That went
Yes.
through me. Phone calls.
Yes. People, some folks fight tooth and nail. It may feel, I guess, a little old fashioned, but I mean, we have our phone within arm's reach at any given time. Granted, I do screen my phone calls because I'm a millennial, so folks may not answer. But how nice. There's technology where you can do ringless voicemail now. You can get your volunteers or your development staff to record a nice voicemail, and it will go straight to their voicemail. So you don't actually have to uh, be ready to talk off the cuff, right? It's just another touch point. Of course, not every donor is going to like that. So you need to understand your donors. Usually, by this point, I will encourage folks to send out a donor survey. Not everybody will fill it out, but how do you like to be engaged? Do you love our newsletters? Do you like to engage with us on social media? Do you prefer a phone call? Do you prefer an email? And follow up with those folks who give you their phone number. Don't just have it in your database doing nothing. Again, even if it goes to voicemail, it just shows that you're paying attention, that you care, and that their energy is worth your time.
Do you have any metrics? And it's okay if you don't, but I'm curious. Um, Response rate or pickup rate, or I guess response rate is the right question, between email, SMS, or WhatsApp and phone calls or any other channel, social media being, I guess, is the fourth one. Any ideas on which one is better? Is it really based on your donors? Is it based on an age or a segment? Anything you can share on those numbers or those channels?
I think that is the $1 million question, right?
It
The
is,
answer
right?
is yes, all of the above. All of the above. Certainly, we have wonderful Donorbox resources in our nonprofit blog that could talk more about these different channels. I don't have those floating in the top of my head. And really do think it is down to demographics and donor preference, and any technology platform that serves one area or another may argue that one is more effective than the other. But I do think it really comes down to your specific needs. Again, as a millennial, my phone is in my hand at all times. I will respond to a text message much faster than I will respond to a voicemail. That said, if the text message is 2 paragraphs long, I will call the person so I don't have to deal with it. So, no perfect answer here. Surely there's lots of good research, but the best thing I can say is to know and understand your donors the best you can and cater your communication to their preferences.
That makes sense to me as well. Knowing who your donors are and how they prefer, and if you can save it in your CRM, how they prefer to be
Exactly.
communicated. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Right there in the donor profile. You want to pick up right where you left off.
You've used the word intentional now quite a few times, and I would like to distill that to something a little more, less abstract.
Mm.
When you say that nonprofits need to be more intentional with their actions, can you be more specific?
Yeah. Gosh, you're putting me on the spot a little bit. Yes, this is still abstract. You're moving with purpose, right? I like to start with the goal in sight. Again, you are looking at this big picture and working backwards. So, yes, you're setting your intention for the end of the year, but that intention may be raising $200,000, $1 million, or getting 30 new donors. What is that intention? What is that goal? And now, what are the strategies in order to make that happen? And then, what are the tactics you're going to use to get there? Right. So, again, I guess a formula that I should probably write down and formalize in a document. But it really can encompass a lot of things. And it's not the formula is a one size fits all, but it's really personal to a nonprofit's goal. So, I think with intention is really your goal, your strategy, your tactics, and who is going to help you accomplish it, right? Um, so I hope that answers your question.
It does, because actually, and I'm happy you mentioned that the three layers, because I agree with them actually. A goal is like a mission statement, it's high level. It doesn't, it might change. Well, there's the mission of the nonprofit, there's maybe a year-end goal or a year goal. There are certain strategies to get there, which is the next level. But then it comes down to tactics, actual day-to-day type stuff, boots on the ground type work. Hopefully your goals don't change too quickly, right? You have one goal, you
Mhm.
set a goal and you head toward it. You base your strategies toward that goal, but they can change, a smaller amount. But the tactics could change day to day. Things could work. You could pivot if you have to. They shouldn't be, they're very granular. So you're able to make these changes pretty quickly without having to sacrifice your strategy or your goals. But I do appreciate the fact you have all three of them, or mentioned all three of them. And then the who is exactly right. Who is in your team to be able to do that? And who are you trying to reach to be able to accomplish this? So I
Yeah.
think that covers it pretty well, because it is, at the end of the day, dependent on your organization and who you're trying to reach. But that is
Yeah.
enough, I think, to start us off.
And I think too, I'll add one more to this. I'd say consistency, right? Just like going to the gym, in order to get to where you want to go, you've got to be consistent, right? It is about showing up regularly and thoughtfully and sticking with it, truly. And like you said, the tactics might change, and it's okay to have to pivot and adjust. But that consistency, I think, is a really big part of it as well.
I totally
I,
agree, because there's always going to be moments where you're like, why are we doing this? Are we sure we're doing the right thing? And sometimes you might need to backpedal and pivot, but sometimes it's just a matter of getting through a particular lull. Like you said, in the summer lull, summer tends to be a bit quieter, as we call it, a slump even. Sometimes you go to the gym and it's just a workout. It isn't the best workout of
Mhm.
your life, but at least you've gone to do that workout. And over time, things will improve and add up and, I was going to say, accumulate.
Mm, yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope that captured it. I'd say the opposite of intention would be chaos to me. If you're thinking about it in this way, I think the intention, yeah, just helps you have a good through line, right? It really is the thing that anchors it all.
To me, the opposite would be spray and pray. You just try everything and just see what sticks without any particular You're going in every direction at every direction at the same time, and to see what works, what doesn't work, and that isn't always. I mean, it might be. Well, I want to play devil's advocate for a second. It might work for certain
I can.
situations, but you probably don't want to. You probably want to be more considerate and intentional and more deliberate with your movements than just
Right.
let's do everything and see what happens.
Right. And donors can pick up on that, right? That spray and pray tactic. They can feel when your communications are intentional versus when you're just quantity over quality. And it's really important to keep in mind that your donors have goals too. So uh, that just helps you stay aligned with that.
So putting you on the spot again and leaning into the superhero theme rather, I was wondering if you had a magic wand or a superpower to be able to change something in the donor or fundraising space, what would it be?
You know, this is a tough one, and I may end up wanting to change my answer at 3 a.m. when I wake up and go, wait a minute. Um, if I could wave a magic wand, I think that I would want to give every nonprofit leader the ability to pause. Just the ability to have a moment to breathe and think strategically. I think that space creates clarity. And often nonprofit leaders don't have that luxury of space. And I see that over and over again. Nonprofit leaders who are buried in the day to day and they never get to step back because they're fighting the good fight. They're doing the good work. They're running from deadline to deadline, campaign to campaign, and they don't really have the space to ask, is this the best use of our time? Is this actually working? So yeah, I think if I was able to have that superpower, I think, of pause, I think we'd see more intentional fundraising, more creative ideas, and healthier teams too, right? Burnout is real, and a tired burnout fundraiser can't bring the best donors to their mission. So yeah, I'd say just hit pause, take a breath, make space for yourself, for strategy. That's what I would do.
I love it because creating pauses and creating even distance sometimes, you gain perspective. You stop being at the lowest level, you know, front lines type stuff, and you get to see the forest from the trees, for example. So taking that time, taking that space, I think is an important part. So I'm happy. It's a great magic wand power or use of magic wands.
Cool.
Jenna, this has been great. A lot of information here. If people have additional questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yes. Well, if you would like to start your year-end fundraising off strong, Donorbox is an all-in-one platform. So you can learn more about Donorbox at donorbox.org. We also have a lot of free educational resources for any nonprofit. So our nonprofit blog is linked on our website right there in the resources tab. Our YouTube channel where you can find tips, inspiration stories, best practices is linked there, along with our podcast, the Nonprofit Podcast. So we have short, actionable episodes where you will have one task to take away with you every single week. And we are focusing on year end right now, and we'll be doing monthly check ins. So start there. We also have a free Donorbox library. So these are downloadable ebooks and resources that you can just use and take to guide your fundraising.
Awesome. We'll be sure to put some of those into the show notes. So,
Cool.
Jenna, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you. You're such a great host. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. All right. That's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.